morning. My name is Deborah Riddle. I am a docent at the Holiday Dorsey 5 Museum and Vice President for the Fayette County Historical Society. And I'm here this morning in the historic Fayetteville Cemetery, established in 1823. It is still an active internment cemetery. And where I'm standing, we have the headstones for James Fitzgerald and his wife Anne. Now, James was an Irish immigrant, and he came to the United States obviously looking for a better life. And he brought with him his brother. We're going to walk over to Philip's headstone now. Philip Fitzgerald might not be a household name now, but he was many years ago. James went into business, and Philip eventually became a landowner and had a large plantation. He had a lovely house there called Rural House, and it became the center of family activity. And his granddaughter, Mary Isabel, or Maybelle as she was known in the family, would bring her daughter, little Peggy, except most of us know Peggy by the name of Margaret Mitchell. She wrote a really nice little book, maybe not so little. But Philip Fitzgerald was Margaret Mitchell's great-grandfather, and the home that he lived in, she would go and visit and hear stories. And so we know that some of the family background from the Fitzgerald family and their friends and neighbors eventually became intertwined with characters in that very famous novel. But did you know that right behind Philip and his wife Eleanor sit Robert Kennedy Holiday and his wife Mary Ann? Mary Ann was James' daughter. She married into the Holiday clan. Now, Robert Kennedy Holiday was the youngest of the three brothers, and his oldest brother had a son that most of us are very well acquainted with. His name was John Henry Holiday, but most everybody in the world knows him best as Doc Holliday in the 31 Seconds at the OK Corral. So Margaret Mitchell is related by marriage to Doc Holliday. That's kind of a small unknown fact, or maybe just to us history nerds that really like that kind of stuff. But back over here at the foot of James' headstone, we have something very unique. We have a headstone that reads Grace, a colored servant of of the Fitzgerald family. And she has a wonderful story. She was getting older and her master passed away. And as would happen when someone passes, their estates divided. Well, unfortunately at that point, slaves were property. And she was terrified that she would be sold and have to leave her family, or terrified that she would be sold out of the county, which meant she would probably never see her relatives again. So by going through intermediaries, she pleaded her case to James Fitzgerald because she'd heard that they were very kind to their people. She begged him to purchase her. Well, James was a businessman, he was a man of wealth and such, but he didn't own slaves. And so he had to think about it. He eventually purchased Grace following her wishes, and she was very, very grateful. Well, James didn't want a slave, so he freed her, and she became part of the household staff or household servant. Well, when it came to her time to pass, her last request was, I want to be buried at the feet of my master. And so you can see by this headstone that the family acknowledged that wish for Grace. And so this is how Grace is the only African-American person buried in the Caucasian section of the historic cemetery. We do have a section of the cemetery that is for the black citizens of our county. It was donated on land that was donated by Mr. Solomon Dorsey and Mr. Cam Bennett. And it has wonderful stories, but Grace is very unique. She sits here in this side of the cemetery telling a very warm-hearted story of how her life ended up in a happy place. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.